The morning began with silence, the kind that felt heavier than words, the kind that carried omens. Inside the top floor of Astoria Holdings, the world's most powerful financial empire, Elias Kale stood before his mahogany desk, staring at an envelope. It was small, harmless at first glance, sealed with crimson wax. Yet the weight it carried could undo generations. He hadn't meant to open it. The envelope had been delivered by mistake, or so he told himself. But the mark on the wax seal wasn't random. It bore the sigil of the Northern Starlight, the mythic crest that the Kale family used only when the gods demanded truth. For years, he'd managed to bury the past, the affair, the girl from the servant quarters, the night that should never have happened. But now, something in the air whispered that the past was not buried. It was stirring. Elias drew in a sharp breath. He broke the seal. Inside, folded neatly, was a printed DNA test, the kind only used for official lineage authentication. At the top corner, his own name gleamed in black ink, Elias Thorne Kale. Beneath it, 3 names, 3 children, all carrying markers that matched his blood. Triplets. The room seemed to tilt. He had known of her pregnancy, yes, but not this. The night he'd left her, Leora had begged him to listen. "You don't understand," she cried, clutching her belly as if guarding a secret against the wind. But Elias was a man chained to a family curse, a dynasty ruled not by love, but by blood law. The Kales did not allow twins, much less triplets, according to the ancient edict of their house, written in the Codex of Truth and Lineage. The birth of multiple heirs in one womb was a fracture fate, an omen that the gods had divided one soul into too many vessels. The punishment was merciless. 2 must be erased to preserve the balance. And if the truth seekers, the mythological enforcers of his family's law, ever learned of it, their verdict would be swift. They would kill the children. And the mother. Elias pressed a hand to his chest, as if to still his heart. He remembered her face, Leora, with her quiet laughter and eyes that saw the man beneath his armor. She had been everything his world forbade. A maid, humble and warm, who'd once brought him coffee and stayed to listen when the nights grew unbearable. That single moment of weakness had become his curse. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Every step echoed in the silence like thunder. The DNA printout trembled in his grasp. 3 children, 3 fragments of forbidden life. And somehow they had survived. But how had this test reached him? Only one organization had the power to summon such truths, the truth seekers themselves. They were not human, not entirely. Descendants of the first judges of bloodlines, they roamed unseen, guided by the glow of the Northern Star. When that star flared, they began their work, seeking lies in blood and fire. If the Northern Starlight had burned last night, the seekers were already on their way. Elias gritted his teeth. "No," he whispered. "They can't find her." But even as he said it, he could feel the tremor in the air, a shift like ancient eyes turning toward him. Somewhere beyond his window, a distant thunder rolled, though the sky was clear. The first sign. He looked again at the names on the report. The children's surnames had been changed, hidden under the name veil, not Kale. Leora had done it to protect them, to erase every trace that tied them to him. She had vanished years ago, leaving no trail. He had believed it was mercy. Now, it felt like destiny reclaiming its due. "Elias, please," she'd said that night, her voice breaking. "They'll find out. Your family will know. They'll kill us all." He'd turned away. He'd been young, proud, and terrified of the curse that ruled his blood. He'd thought leaving her would save her. But fate, as always, had sharper claws. Back in the present, his phone vibrated. A private number. He hesitated before answering. A soft, measured voice greeted him. "Lord Kale," it said. No one had called him that in years, not since he rejected the family title. "The starlight burns bright tonight. The seekers have been awakened." Elias's hand went cold. "Who is this?" "An old friend," the voice replied. "You should run, before the truth does." He rushed to the window, staring out over the city. Somewhere, Leora was alive, and with her, 3 children who bore his eyes, his blood, his forbidden name. He whispered their names aloud for the first time. Each syllable felt like prayer and intertwined. He could see them in his mind. A little girl clutching a worn book, a boy with Leora's quiet smile, and another with a fierce, unblinking gaze that mirrored his own. For a moment, hope flickered. Maybe he could find them first. Maybe he could protect them. But the air shifted again, heavier this time, colder. He knew what it meant. The Seekers had arrived in the city. The family curse was alive, breathing through generations, waiting for this very moment. The unraveling of secrecy, the rebalancing of fate. A faint chime echoed through the room, the old grandfather clock striking 3. The hour of revelation. In ancient Kael lore, that was a time when truth could not be hidden, even from silence. Elias took the DNA papers, folded them, and slipped them into his breast pocket. He couldn't destroy them. The Seekers would sense it, but he could hide what they meant. He turned to his private vault, opening the biometric lock. Inside were files, gold, and a single glass vial glowing faintly blue. The essence of his family's truth serum, distilled from the light of the northern star. It could erase lineage from blood records, but only for one generation. To use it meant sacrificing everything, name, inheritance, and memory. He hesitated, staring at the shimmering vial. For them, he whispered. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The temperature dropped. A whisper echoed behind him, low, almost melodic. You cannot hide what the stars have already seen. He froze. Standing at the far end of the room was a figure cloaked in silver, eyes glowing faintly like embers. A Seeker. Elias's breath caught. They were early. The figure tilted its head. 3 souls born from one. A fracture of destiny. The codex must be fulfilled. He took a step forward, voice shaking. They are children, my children. Then you know the price, the Seeker replied. 2 must return to the void, that the balance be restored. Elias moved closer, his hand subtly inching toward the vial. And if I refuse? The Seeker smiled faintly. Then the curse consumes them all, mother, children, and father alike. His chest tightened. Leora, the thought of her blood spilled because of his sin nearly brought him to his knees. He forced himself to meet the creature's gaze. Give me time. Time, the Seeker echoed. The northern star waits for no man. Its light has already chosen the guilty. Elias acted before thought. He flung the vial to the ground. It shattered in a burst of blue flame. A surge of light exploded outward, washing over him in a wave of searing pain. The Seeker stumbled back, momentarily blinded. Elias collapsed against his desk, gasping. The light dimmed, leaving the office cloaked in eerie stillness. When the Seeker's vision cleared, Elias was gone. The vault stood empty, the DNA papers missing. Only the faint scent of burning starlight lingered in the air. Far from the tower, down a narrow street, where rain kissed the cobblestones, a woman stirred from sleep. Leora sat upright, clutching her chest. Her heart raced without reason, as though an invisible thread had pulled it. She looked to the window. The northern star was burning brighter than she'd ever seen. Her 3 children slept soundly beside her, unaware that their father had just defied the laws of gods and blood to save them. For now, they were safe. But Leora knew what that star meant. The Seekers would not stop. The truth would not sleep. And when the light flared again, someone would have to pay. Visual, final wide shot, the northern star glowing over the city, casting both blessing and warning. Leora Vale hadn't slept since the night the star began to burn. It wasn't just a light that unsettled her. It was the way it pulsed, like something alive. Every few minutes, it shimmered brighter, its glow slipping through the curtains and brushing against her skin like a whisper. She sat on the edge of her bed, her long hair unbound, hands clasped tightly in her lap. The children slept beside her, 3 small bodies breathing in perfect rhythm, unaware of the storm that was about to find them. For 7 years, she had built her world on silence. New names, a new town, a simple life. She had told everyone her husband had died in a foreign country, leaving her with the triplets. An innocent story that shielded her from questions. But tonight, she could feel it. The past had found them. The air shifted again, faintly electric, like the hum before lightning strikes. She rose, her bare feet brushing against the worn wooden floor. In the corner of the room, the youngest little Iron stirred in her sleep, mumbling softly. "Mother," she whispered, eyes still closed. "The stars are calling." Leora froze. She knelt beside the child, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "It's just a dream, my love." But deep down, she knew it wasn't. Iron had always been the most sensitive of the three, the one who spoke to shadows, who drew symbols in the dirt without ever learning them. Sometimes, when the moon was high, her eyes reflected light that shouldn't exist. Leora turned toward the window. Across the valley, beyond the dark hills, the old Kale estate slumbered like a beast. The House of Starlight, built centuries ago atop the resting place of fallen angels. Its towers were still visible in the distance, even after all these years. It was from that house the curse had been born. The legend said the first Kale, Seraphine, had stolen a fragment of the northern star to forge his bloodline. In doing so, he bound his descendants to eternal truth. No Kale could lie without consequence. No secret could remain hidden for long. But power comes with hunger. When Seraphine tried to divide his essence to create perfect heirs, the god struck back. The gift of multiple birth was branded as defiance, and from that day forward, the curse was sealed. For every extra child, one life must be claimed. Leora shivered. She had grown up hearing those stories whispered by the older maids, never imagining she would one day bear the children of that cursed line. She had loved Elias, not the billionaire, not the heir, but the man beneath the legacy, the one who smiled at her over morning coffee, who read poetry to her in the garden when no one was watching. He had promised her freedom. Instead, his love had chained her to a myth. A faint knock echoed from the front door. Her heart stopped. She moved quickly, pulling a shawl over her shoulders. The children remained asleep, or perhaps something deeper had lulled them into stillness. She crept toward the door, each step careful, her breath shallow. Who's there? No answer, only the steady tapping of rain against the roof. Then a voice, male, low, familiar. Leora. Her fingers trembled on the doorknob. That voice had haunted her dreams for years. She swung the door open. Elias stood there, soaked from the rain, eyes shadowed with exhaustion and fear. He looked nothing like the man she had once known. His suit torn, blood on his sleeve, his aura unsteady, like a flame struggling against wind. "Elias," she breathed, "you shouldn't be here." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "They've found us." Her world tilted. "The Seekers?" He nodded. "They came for me at the tower. I delayed them, but they'll sense the trail. The starlight burned for us tonight. That means judgment has already begun." Leora backed away, pressing a hand to her chest. "You brought them here." "I had no choice," Elias said, his voice breaking. "I couldn't let them destroy the children. I had to protect them." "You had 7 years to protect them," she hissed. "You left us with nothing but fear." He looked down, shame written across his face. "I thought leaving would save you." "It never does," she said softly. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the rain filled the silence. Finally, Leora turned toward the small cradle by the fire. "They're asleep," she whispered. "They don't know who you are." "They shouldn't," Elias replied. "Not yet." He walked closer, gaze softening as he looked upon his children for the first time. 3 faces, peaceful and innocent, each marked with a faint silver shimmer of the Kale bloodline. A tear escaped him. "They look like you." "No," she said quietly. "They look like fate." He knelt, brushing his fingers against the youngest child's hand. As he did, a surge of warmth pulsed through the air. The candle beside them flared to life, burning white-hot. Elias pulled back, startled. "What was that?" "The bond," Leora said. "You were never meant to touch them. The curse recognizes its maker." He swallowed hard. "It's stronger than I thought." "Stronger?" She laughed bitterly. "You think this is strength? Every day since they were born, I've prayed they would not share your light. I've prayed they would just be children." "They are children," Elias said, "but they are also Kales, which means the Seekers will not stop until the balance is restored." Leora turned away, tears welling in her eyes. Then what do we do? We run, he said. There's a way. My grandfather spoke of it, the right of severance. It's forbidden, but it can break the blood link between heirs and the codex. If we perform it before the next lunar rise, the seekers will lose their claim. Leora looked at him, half hope, half disbelief. You would risk your soul for them? I already have. The room fell into silence again, but far beyond the walls, unseen, something stirred. On a hill overlooking the valley, 3 hooded figures stood beneath the rain. Their silver eyes reflected the starlight. The seekers had arrived. Truth stirs, one murmured. The Kale line bleeds deception once more. Another raised a hand, tracing a sigil into the air. The northern star has spoken. The mother bears 3. Balance demands 2. Their leader nodded. Then let it be done before dawn. Back inside the cottage, Elias packed quickly. Papers, maps, an old book bound in black leather. The codex. Leora watched him, torn between love and resentment. Where will we go? There's a monastery in the east, he said, hidden under the ruins of Seraphine's tomb. The monks there serve the light, but not the blood. They'll help us perform the rite. And if they don't, then we die trying. Her breath caught. You make it sound so simple. He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw the truth in his eyes. He was terrified, but beneath that terror, there was something purer, love, raw and desperate. I lost you once, he said. I won't lose you again. Leora hesitated, then nodded. Then we moved before dawn. As they gathered the children, a strange stillness settled over the cottage. The rain had stopped. Outside, the night shimmered faintly blue. Iron stirred once more. Mother, she whispered, there are people outside. Leora's blood ran cold. She moved to the window, drawing back the curtain. The hill beyond the house glowed with silver light. 3 shapes stood unmoving, watching. They're here, Elias said. The door shook once. Then again, he turned to Leora. Take them through the back. I'll hold them off. No, she whispered. Not again. He smiled faintly. I'm not leaving you. I just need time. She wanted to believe him, but in her heart, she knew the stars kept no mercy for liars, not even those who lied for love. The door splintered open. Blinding light flooded the room. Elias raised his hand, and for a moment, the air crackled with defiance. The blood of Seraphine answered his call, the light of the northern star bending to his will. The seeker stepped inside, faces unreadable, voices one with the wind. Elias Kale, they intoned. The codex demands balance. He met their gaze. Then it will have me. Before they could speak again, he unleashed the light, a burst of raw, celestial energy that tore through the walls. Leora screamed, clutching the children as the house exploded into blinding radiance. When the light faded, only ashes remained. But on the distant hill, the northern star still burned, brighter than ever. And somewhere in the smoke, a whisper lingered. This is only the beginning. The day the results arrived, silence carried more weight than thunder. No one spoke. No one breathed. I stood in the corner of the room, half hidden behind the grand piano, my fingers nervously rubbing the corner of my apron until the fabric began to tear. I told myself I was only there to tidy up the study, but my eyes were locked on that envelope like it contained my heartbeat. Elias sat across the table, his posture so straight it looked unnatural. His assistant hovered near the door, trembling slightly. The man had conquered markets, rival corporations, even entire continents with a single boardroom glance. But now, even he couldn't summon his trademark calm. He reached for the envelope, tore it open, and froze. The room grew heavier. The air felt strange, electric, charged with something primal. 3 lines of text, 3 names, 3 children. The sound of paper sliding against his shaking fingers echoed like thunder in a cathedral. He looked up, not at his assistant, not at the framed portrait of his late father on the wall, but straight through the air, as if he could already see the ghosts of his own mistakes marching toward him. And perhaps he could, because from that moment on, Elias wasn't the billionaire who rebuilt cities, the man who commanded fleets of industries. He was a father of three he never knew existed, and one he had abandoned before birth. I stepped back, heart pounding, realizing what this meant. The secret I had protected for years, the truth buried beneath shame and silence, was now staring him in the face. He whispered my name then, softly, like a confession. Arya. I froze. For years, he hadn't said it aloud. Not since the wedding he never showed up to. Not since his assistant handed me a note that simply read, "It's over. Don't look for me again." And now, there he was, standing in the ruins of his empire's calm, calling me as though my name still meant something. I stepped forward, trembling, unsure whether I was ready to face him or flee once more. He asked where the children were, not out of anger, but out of disbelief, perhaps a desperate hope that this was all a cruel trick. I told him they were safe, hidden far from the truth seekers, the ancient order that had once served his family, but had since become something else entirely. They were not just corporate spies. They were oath-bound to the old gods of truth, the kind that demanded offerings, not apologies. And if they discovered the existence of the heirs before Elias could reclaim them, before he could offer his repentance in the proper way, they would come, not for money, not for revenge, but for blood. He sank into his chair, eyes wide, the truth carving new lines into his face. He whispered, "They'll come for them, won't they?" I nodded. He covered his face with his hands. For a man who once believed that numbers and power could bend destiny, the idea of being hunted by something older, deeper, and unbribable was shattering. The mansion suddenly felt alive, its walls whispering, its chandeliers trembling. It was as though the building itself had been waiting for this reckoning. Elias turned to me. "Where are they now?" I hesitated. "Somewhere no one can find them." He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against marble. "I need to see them. I need to make this right." "Right?" I repeated, unable to contain the bitterness that had been gathering inside me for years. "You think you can undo a decade with one look, Elias?" He didn't answer. His silence said enough. The guilt in his eyes was not performative. It was raw, the kind that strips pride away until all that's left is regret. "I thought I was protecting you," he murmured. "There were forces I couldn't defy. My father had arrangements. He made me swear an oath to the truth seekers. They promised fortune in exchange for loyalty. And in return, I said coldly, you gave them me." He didn't deny it. That silence was louder than any confession. For years I believed my pain was small, human, the heartbreak of a discarded woman. But now, as the past unfurled, I realized I've been a pawn in a story much older than our love. The seekers had always demanded the bloodline remain pure, each airborne under their blessing. But I was not chosen by them. I was chosen by him. And that made our children forbidden. "They know," I whispered. The moment that test was processed, they would have seen the result. "Elias, they'll come for us." He moved toward me, reaching out, and for a fleeting moment, I almost let him. His hand hovered inches from my cheek, trembling. "I won't let them touch you," he vowed. "Not you, not them." But the promise of a man who once served the seekers carries no safety. It is like swearing to fight the wind with bare hands. I turned away. "You don't understand. It's not about whether you let them. The curse has already been triggered." He blinked. "What curse?" "The blood oath," I said, my voice trembling. "The one your ancestors sealed centuries ago. If an unblessed heir carries your name, the seekers must restore balance through blood or silence." And then he understood. Completely. He sank to his knees, realization spreading across his face like fire-consuming parchment. I watched him crumble, and for the first time in years, I felt no victory, only the terrible inevitability of what was coming. He said quietly, "Then we'll rewrite the balance." But rewriting fate isn't as simple as rewriting a contract. For every life spared, another must pay. And for every secret unearthed, the earth demands a cost. That night, Elias ordered his private jet to be readied. We would leave before dawn, before the seekers could trace the DNA's digital trail. But I knew, deep down, we were already too late. Because fate, like the old gods, doesn't send warnings. It sends omens. And as the storm gathered above the mansion, lightning illuminated the garden, revealing 3 figures cloaked in white, standing just beyond the iron gates. The seekers had arrived. The first knock came at exactly midnight. 3 strikes, deliberate, slow, ceremonial. I felt it through the walls, through my bones. The children were miles away, hidden, but my instincts screamed like they were still under my roof. Elias looked toward the door, his jaw tight. He had aged in a single evening, guilt and fear weighing down his once untouchable face. "They've come for a parley," he said softly. "Parley?" I repeated, incredulous. "You can't negotiate with them. You know what they are." But he was already walking toward the entrance, barefoot, without his coat, as though some part of him accepted this confrontation as necessary. The doors opened, and the storm swept in with a howl. The eldest among them removed his hood. His eyes were pale, almost silver, his voice low but cutting. "Elias Vare, you have defied the blood oath." Elias didn't flinch. "I'm ending it." The man smiled faintly. "You cannot end what was bound in truth and blood. The test confirmed 3 heirs. You know what must follow." I stepped forward. "They're children, innocent. You think the gods care about paperwork and paternity?" The seeker turned to me slowly, and for a terrifying moment, I felt my mind stripped bare, every secret, every memory laid open like pages of a book. He said softly, "You were not chosen, Arya, yet the line continued through you. You've interfered with the balance. I didn't choose this." I cried. "I didn't choose him or his curse or your gods." Elias stood between us. "If blood is owed, take mine. Leave them." The eldest seeker's expression didn't change. "You forget, Elias. This debt was written in your name. But the gods, they collect through what you love most." The words hit him like a blade. He whispered, "Then I'll protect her, even if it kills me." The seeker's pale lips curved. "It will." They vanished then, dissolving into storm as if they were never real, leaving behind only the echo of their verdict. And in that hollow silence, the truth set in. The countdown had begun. Elias turned to me, his expression calm now, terrifyingly calm. "We leave at dawn." But as he spoke, I noticed something strange, a thin streak of blood trailing from his nose. He wiped it away carelessly. But I knew what it meant. The oath was already feeding. Outside, the storm roared louder, as though the heavens themselves were listening. Inside, 2 broken souls prepared to challenge a curse older than their love, and older still than the sins that birthed it. Because once the seekers mark a name, there is no hiding from the truth. The night broke with a soundless storm, a sky without rain but full of whispers. Above the grand mansion, the northern star burned brighter than it had in centuries. The truth seekers called it the awakening eye, the first sign that a forbidden heir had been born. Inside his private study, Elias paced before the tall windows, his reflection fractured by the glass. He had dismissed his assistants, his guards, everyone. Yet he could not dismiss the echo of what he had done. The ancient rules of the House of Varen had been clear since the dawn of their dynasty. The heir must stand alone under the northern star. Multiplicity breeds chaos. It was not superstition. It was law woven in blood. On the mahogany desk lay an open journal, his ancestors' writings, inked in languages few still remembered. One phrase was underlined in red. "When the star divides, so shall the blood." Elias's hands trembled. He had thought those words were metaphorical, relics of old paranoia. But now there were 3. He closed his eyes, hearing the faint sound of infants breathing from a nursery hidden beneath the manor, a sound that should have been comforting, yet haunted him like an omen. A sudden knock shattered his stillness. "Enter," he said, voice strained. The door opened, revealing Marcellus, his oldest confidant and the only man who knew the full truth. "They've seen it," Marcellus whispered. "The northern star burned twice, then split into 3. The seers have begun their pilgrimage." Elias's chest tightened. "How long do we have?" 3 nights at most," Marcellus replied. "They're coming from the north." And when they arrive, they will not ask, they will demand. Elias turned away from the window. Then we'll vanish before they do, he said. Marcellus looked uneasy. And the children? Elias's eyes hardened. They are my blood. I will not let fate write their end. Down below, in a hidden wing of the manor, Arya cradled the sleeping triplets, Leora, Cale, and Sarah. Their faces reflected 3 different hues beneath the candlelight, one pale like the moon, one warm as dawn, one shadowed like dusk. Each was perfect, each a fragment of something divine and forbidden. Arya felt the pulse of the curse before she understood it. The children's heartbeats sometimes synchronized, 3 tiny drums beating as one. And when that happened, the air itself trembled. Lights flickered. Glass cracked, and she swore she heard whispers in the walls. It wasn't mere fear. It was the power of lineage, the northern blood manifesting thrice, when it was only ever meant to appear once. Elias came to her side, his coat dusted with snow. "They know," he said simply. Her breath caught. "Then it's over." "No," he whispered, touching her cheek. "Not yet." There was love in his eyes, but behind it, the fire of a man defying fate itself. For the first time, Arya saw not a CEO, not a billionaire heir, but a man willing to burn his dynasty to protect his sin. The clock struck midnight, and somewhere beyond the mountains, the truth seekers lit their torches. 3 nights later, silence blanketed the estate like snowfall. Every servant had been dismissed, every door sealed. Only Elias, Arya, the children, and Marcellus remained. They had made plans, false passports, a private jet waiting at a deserted airstrip. But fate does not bend easily to human plans, especially when bloodlines are involved. At precisely midnight, one of the children, Sarah, began to cry. Her wail was not that of an infant. It was melodic, ancient, almost a chant. The glass panes shook in their frames, and a faint red light shimmered beneath her cradle. Arya gasped, "What's happening?" Elias rushed forward, but Marcellus stopped him. "Don't touch her." The red glow spread, lines of light crawling across the floor, like veins of molten fire. They converged beneath the family crest carved into the stone tiles, forming the symbol of the northern star. Then came the voice, soft at first, female, ageless. "The line has broken a vow." Arya clutched the cradle, her eyes wide with terror. Elias stood frozen. He had heard that voice before, in dreams, in nightmares, in every oath sworn by the house of Varen. It was a voice of the matron, the first truth seeker, the one who bound their blood to the law of singular inheritance. "The children must not live as 3, the voice continued. "The stars' balance demands reparation." Arya screamed, "They are innocent." Silence. Then, a whisper of wind extinguished every candle in the room. Elias fell to his knees. "Please," he begged, to no one visible. "They are my blood, my heart. Take me instead." The voice softened. "Blood can substitute blood, but lineage must be sealed." Marcellus stepped forward, pale and trembling. "She's giving you a choice." Elias looked up, his face a mix of despair and defiance. "What choice?" Marcellus hesitated. "Your life or theirs?" The words hung heavy, like iron in the air. Outside, thunder roared. The northern star split again, once, twice, before fading into a dim shadow, as if ashamed of what it seen. Elias turned to Arya. "If I die, they live. That's the law." She shook her head violently. "No, there must be another way." "There isn't," Marcellus said quietly. "The blood oath was made by your ancestors, Elias. The matron enforces it. You can't hide from her." But even as the prophecy pressed against them, Elias refused to yield. He gathered the infants into his arms, 3 tiny faces staring up at him with the same eyes that had once looked upon kingdoms and empires. "My children," he whispered, voice cracking. "You will live, even if it means the stars themselves fall." He turned to Marcellus. "Prepare the car. We leave now. But the seers, then we'll outrun the gods if we must." As they fled into the frozen night, Arya clung to him, praying under her breath. But somewhere behind them, on the highest hill, Cloaked figures watched, truth seekers, silent as death, their torches forming the shape of a single burning star. And when one of them lifted a hand, the snow began to bleed. Snow swallowed the world whole. Each flake glittered like broken glass under the headlights of the speeding black car. The mountain road was narrow, winding, and deadly, but Elias didn't slow down. His hands gripped the wheel, as if it were the last thread binding him to life itself. In the back seat, Arya held the three infants close, her shawl wrapped around them. The babies stirred faintly, their tiny breaths clouding the cold air. The hum of the engine couldn't drown out the rhythm of their synchronized heartbeats, 3 pulses echoing like a drum of destiny. Visual: headlights cutting through snow, flashes of northern star glowing faintly through thick clouds above. Marcellus sat in the passenger seat, eyes scanning the rearview mirror. They're not far behind. Elias's jaw tightened. How many? 6 riders, Marcellus murmured. Truth seekers. They're moving faster than before. It's like the storm's carrying them. A low growl of thunder rolled through the mountains. Arya's hand trembled as she brushed her children's foreheads. Elias, she whispered. They can feel them. The babies are reacting. Indeed, the air inside the car had changed. It was warmer now, though the storm outside howled like winter's fury. The infant's skin shimmered faintly, each radiating a different color. Moonlight, dawn, dusk, the 3 phases of the northern star itself. Elias glanced at them in the rear mirror. They're not just heirs, he muttered. They're conduits. What do you mean? Arya asked. Each carries a fragment of the Varen bloodline's ancient power. Divided like this, they can't control it. But united, they could reshape the curse. Marcellus turned sharply. Elias, you're saying the children could break the blood law? Elias nodded. If they live long enough to awaken fully. A sudden explosion of light cut across the road, torches flaring in the distance. The truth seekers had caught up, cloaked riders, their faces masked in silver, emerged through the snow like wraiths. Their eyes glowed faintly blue, the mark of those who had sworn their souls to the matron's service. Arya gasped, Elias. He slammed the brakes and skidded sideways. The car spun once, snow spraying in blinding waves, before coming to rest at the edge of a cliff. The riders surrounded them, chanting. Their voices were calm, almost sorrowful, as they spoke in the ancient tongue. 3 lights born beneath the forbidden star. 3 hearts beating against the law. One must be silenced, or all shall fall. Marcellus drew his gun. We're outnumbered. Elias stepped out of the car, unarmed, his breath rising like smoke. I am Elias Varen, son of the Northern House. You speak of law, but what a mercy. The lead seeker dismounted. His mask shimmered faintly. Mercy was given when your bloodline was crowned. It was taken when you defied it. Behind him, the snow began to swirl unnaturally, spiraling into a column of silver mist. From within that mist emerged a shadow, tall, robed, radiant in cold light. The matron. Her voice was soft, yet carried across the valley like thunder. The star has divided, Elias. You of all men know what must be done. Elias's knees nearly buckled under the weight of her presence. They are children. They are in balance. Arya emerged from the car, holding the infants tight. Then take me, she cried. I am the sin, not them. The matron regarded her quietly. You are mortal. The curse was not written for you. Elias's heart pounded. Then write it anew, he said. Let the curse end with me. The matron's gaze softened for the briefest moment, and then hardened again. The curse ends only when the star is restored. The wind rose into a shriek. Snow lifted from the ground like ghosts. The truth seekers raised their torches, forming a circle of light and fire. And within that circle, the triplets began to glow. Their cries harmonized. 3 voices merging into one, rising into a song that tore through the storm. Marcellus shouted over the wind, Elias, what's happening? They're resonating. Elias yelled, They're summoning the star. And then the impossible occurred. The clouds above split apart, revealing the full brilliance of the northern star, massive, pulsing, alive. Its light bathed the entire mountain in silver fire. The truth-seekers dropped to their knees. Even the matron shielded her eyes. Arya's voice trembled. "Elias, they're dying." "No," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "They're becoming." The mountain trembled beneath the weight of divine light. All around them, time seemed to slow. Every flake of snow froze in midair, every whisper caught in eternity. In that stillness, Elias stepped forward, his heart breaking as he felt the pull, the invisible current drawing the children toward the stars' glow. "Don't take them," he pleaded. "Please." A voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was not the matron this time, but something older, deeper. "Balance requires sacrifice." Elias turned to Arya. "If I go with them, maybe—" "No!" she screamed, clinging to him. "We've already lost too much." But he smiled sadly. "If they live, the curse ends. If I stay, it continues." Marcellus stepped forward, shaking his head. "Elias, there's no guarantee." "There never is," Elias said. "But this is the only way to make it right." He turned back to the matron. "Let their bloodline be free." The matron bowed her head, then fulfilled a vow. He placed a trembling hand over each child's heart, Leora, Kaelsera, and kissed their foreheads one by one. "Live free," he whispered. "Live where no one will ever fear the light." The stars' radiance flared. Arya screamed his name as a surge of energy engulfed him. Silver fire spiraling upward, wrapping around him and the children. For an instant, they all became silhouettes of light. And then silence. When the glow faded, the mountain was still again. The children lay sleeping in Arya's arms, alive, unharmed. But Elias was gone. Only his coat remained, folded neatly on the snow. The matron stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "He has sealed the curse with his life. The line is free." Arya fell to her knees, clutching the babies, tears mixed with snow. Where did he go? The matron gazed at the sky, where the northern star now burned steady. A single light once more, where the first vow was made, beyond the veil. And then she, too, vanished into mist. Days later, the storm cleared. Arya left the mountains, carrying her 3 children under new names, new lives. The world would know nothing of what had happened that night, only that the House of Varen had ended and peace had returned. But sometimes when the children slept, she would look out the window and swear she saw him, a shadow of a man standing beneath the star, watching, guarding. And in the quiet wind, she could almost hear his voice. "No truth is ever hidden forever, but love can rewrite even the oldest curse." The night the northern light reappeared, the world seemed to hold its breath. The truth seekers, those silent watchers of lineage and oath, had gathered in the shadows once again. Their eyes glowed faintly, like dying embers rekindled by prophecy. They had seen the sign. The fates had spoken. The triplets, those born of forbidden bond, had reached their 7th year. The same age, legend said, when the bloodline's truth would echo back to the sky. And now, the aurora pulsed, whispering the names of the hidden heirs. But this time, something was different. Inside the CEO's ancestral mansion, cold marble floors lined with portraits of stoic forebears, Layla sat before the fire, her trembling hands wrapped around a sealed letter. It was addressed to her children in handwriting she recognized instantly, Aiden's. He had been gone for months now, ever since the confrontation in the valley. The truth seekers had nearly found them, but he'd used an ancient rite to rewrite their lineage in the archives of fate. He'd traded his voice for their survival. Now he lived in silence. A phantom father in a world that no longer knew his name. Layla could still hear the faint echo of his last words before he disappeared into the mist that night. If the light ever finds him again, tell him to choose love over legacy. The triplets, Ari, Lien, and Sarah, were no longer fragile infants. Each bore the quiet brilliance of their father and the fiery courage of their mother. Yet within them stirred something ancient, something the family's myth had never accounted for. Sarah, the youngest, had begun to dream of stars whispering her name. Lien, calm and thoughtful, had learned to read the old runes carved into their father's hidden library. And Ari heard voices when the wind turned north. voices that spoke of debt, of destiny, of blood. That night, the air outside the mansion shimmered. The northern star flared, and Layla knew the truth seekers were near. She gathered her children and led them through a narrow tunnel beneath the estate, one carved generations ago for kings who feared revolt. The tunnel's walls were marked with strange sigils, protection glyphs, fading but alive. At the end of the path lay the old temple, abandoned, half buried in cold. The moment they stepped inside, the triplets' eyes glowed faintly, responding to carved constellations above. The temple recognized them. The air vibrated with low hums, like voices calling from beneath the earth. Layla fell to her knees, her body trembling with a mixture of awe and terror. "No," she whispered. "Not again. Please, not now." But the temple responded. The truth could not remain hidden forever. The truth seekers emerged from shadows, hooded figures whose faces were obscured by glass masks. Their leader stepped forward, holding the staff of judgment that shimmered with the same northern light, now bleeding through cracks in the temple ceiling. "The signs have aligned," the leader intoned. "The forbidden heirs live. The lineage must be balanced." Layla stood before her children, defiant despite the tears streaking her face. "Balance," she spat. "You call murder balance?" "The law is older than love," the figure replied. "Older than kings, older than stars." But just as the staff began to glow, just as the seekers moved closer, a strange wind swept through the chamber. The sigils carved into the stone burst into golden light. A voice echoed, not from any human throat, but from the earth itself. It was Aiden's. "Not again," it said. "No more blood. No more heirs born only to die." Aiden stepped out of the light, his eyes distant yet burning with celestial energy. The voice he had lost had been returned to him, but it was no longer merely human. It was part of the myth itself. He reached for Layla, their hands meeting between worlds. And as their fingers touched, the temple began to dissolve. The old laws, those etched in bone and oath, cracked like glass under the weight of their defiance. The leader of the truth seekers fell to his knees, mask shattering to reveal an ancient, sorrowful face. "You would undo the balance for love?" he whispered. Aiden's reply was simple. "Love is the balance." The light consumed everything, and when it faded, the seekers were gone. The temple was gone. The myth had unraveled. Only the family remained, reborn beneath the same sky, but under a different name. Years later, the legend of the Northern Light had faded into a whisper told only in bedtime stories. The truth seekers had vanished, their records erased by time itself. The CEO who once ruled empires from his glass throne was now a myth, a man who defied his bloodline to save love. Layla stood on a balcony overlooking the sunrise, her children beside her. The world had changed. Corporations no longer swore by the blood of founders, but by the integrity of their choices. The triplets, now grown, led what was once the fallen dynasty. But they called it something new, dawn, because dawn is what comes after the longest night. They had each inherited part of their father's gift and their mother's heart. Together, they built a world where lineage no longer decided fate, where truth was not a punishment, but a promise. One night, as Layla walked through the garden, she looked up at the sky. The northern star glowed faintly, but this time it didn't burn with judgment. It pulsed softly like a heartbeat, and for the first time in generations, no truth seekers answered its call. She felt Aiden's presence in the wind, warm, tender, eternal. "You kept them safe," his voice whispered faintly through the rustling leaves. Layla smiled. "No," she said softly. "We did." In that moment, a new myth was born, not of blood and vengeance, but of renewal. The dynasty of dawn, where love rewrote fate. And in the hush of the northern wind, you could almost hear the truth once more, not as a threat, not as a curse, but as a lullaby.